Hey everybody, welcome to the newest video. Seems like I'm doing one about every month. And oddly enough, technically it's not the same shirt as I had in the other one because the other one was an older version of this shirt, but I got a newer version of this shirt. But still it's the same shirt, which is kind of weird. Anyways, so like I said, I haven't had a lot to talk about. But one thing that did come across my path, and it just total nostalgia for me, and it may be for you. Does anybody remember a magazine called Comic Scene magazine? Again, when I say magazine, I'm speaking to a specific group of people. Probably people born, I want to say, before the year 90-ish. So maybe old millennials and definitely Gen X and on. So young millennials and, Gen Z, or definitely Gen Alpha. The word magazine is like, what's that? Anyways, before the internet, it was all magazines. Zines, some people called them, and they could have been professionally published magazine by professional companies. They could have been amateur magazine, just like comic books today. You've got professional comic books, the big three, then you've got indies, and then you've got self-published, the same thing. That kind of was the case with magazines, and it goes beyond comic books, obviously. Music zines were a big thing. So, like I said, before the internet, that's what we had, zines, or magazines. And so anyways, I did Starlog magazine. Nobody seemed to really pay attention to that one. Does anybody even remember these magazines? I mean, this stuff was pretty prevalent. It doesn't seem like a lot of people either are interested in it, which begs the question, why make the video in the first place? But here we are. But Fangoria magazine, Dragon magazine, I'm talking about all the specific magazines that say a young guy in his teens, even younger, up into his adulthood, would have been purchasing, or at least thumbing through. And you go to Barnes and Noble, and even before Barnes and Noble, B. Dalton or Fireside Books or whatever mom and pop place you've got. You'd go to even go to the grocery store. You'd go to you'd go to the magazine rack and you'd thumb through a bunch of magazines. So back to Comic Scene. I didn't know how old it was personally. I started collecting it around 1987, which makes perfect sense because that's when you'll see what I'm talking about. But I didn't know how far back it went. So I was on the archives and I was checking out something else, and one of the Comic Scenes magazines popped up. And I went, oh, I totally forgot about Comic Scene magazine. So I clicked on it, and I hit the hyperlink to the broad category Comic Scene magazine, and it brought up pretty much all of them. I think it's missing maybe 5 out of, I don't know, I've got 44 issues, and I actually, it ran, here's the weird thing, it ran from 1981, the end of 1981, up until, when did it stop? It ran up until 83, so pretty much, and not all of 83. Well, yeah, actually all of 83. It was published monthly. No, quarterly. Sorry, got to get my publishing schedules right. It was quarterly. You had 4 times a year, every 3 months, a magazine would come out. So that's why some people might not have seen it because it may have hit the shelf and then sold out quickly. And maybe there's a rogue copy wedged behind a Starlog. It was published by the people at Starlog, by the way. Just want to put that out there. This isn't really a history of the magazine. If you want to learn about it, just go on Wikipedia. Pretty much everything you're going to learn about Comic Scene magazine is on Wikipedia. I don't need to repeat Wikipedia for you. But this is what my experience is with it. And it stopped in 83. However, and this is weird because I didn't know this until recently, it picked back up in 1987. And that makes perfect sense. Remember, I don't know if you watched my videos before, I moved into a new place with my parents, and I was in 8th grade, in the after the winter break of 1987, boom, I started going up to Fireside Booksite on my bike. I met my buddy, my Ruther friend, who also was into comic books, and that's where we started seeing comic scenes. So I just assumed it was always around, but I didn't know for certain. And that's when we started either thumbing through it at the bookstore, maybe plunking down I don't know what the cover price. We'll look at the cover price, but probably $4. Plunking down the $4 for the cover price, taking it home. People borrowing it, reading it, blah blah blah. And so it pretty much then out until I would say when I got out of comics in '92, and it did go to '96, from '87 to '96 for the second volume. However, I only collected it up until that '82, and like I said, in '83 I was pretty much done with most Western comics. With the exception of, which wasn't Western, but with the exception of like Heavy Metal magazine. And I didn't go lock, stock, and barrel into anime either. I was more into European comics, not just heavy metal stuff, but heavy metal adjacent in the '90s, and got away from because the whole bubble burst. And you can watch my videos on that too. But so let's dive into it. I've got all their PDFs. I'll try to open them in Comics Viewer. It's a little easier. Adobe Photoshop I have to use so I can see the thumbnails, but I don't like to read it in Photoshop because Photoshop always ends up crashing or acts stupid. So we'll try to open it in. I just mentioned it and it did something weird with the files. What is that was weird. Guess it's listening. Sorry for the high-pitched laugh squeal too. Anyways, let's dive into it here. So let's put this on. I'm assuming this is camera. There we go. And anyways, so here we have. Like I said, this is almost all of them. I think I'm missing 4 or 5 issues from 81 to 92. So essentially 10, 11, well, it's pretty much the end of 81, so we'll say 82. 82 to 92, pretty much 10 years of it is what I have in here, which is, pretty much the bulk of my comic time as a kid. Again, I did not read it in these early issues, so I'll kind of skip over the earlier issues. We'll flip through the covers here real quick, but I didn't know these existed, so, it's just fun. I'm just going to make some comments on the covers, but we'll dive into a couple of key issues that I actually have owned, or at least flipped through. And I know one specifically is missing in this, and that's the one with the Return of the Swamp Thing. I remember specifically having that one, and I can't find the version of that. So let's flip through these. Again, let's just look at the covers here. So it's the easiest way to do it. I got my mouse set funny, so we're gonna go. Here we go. Okay, so here's the first issue. Here, give it a second. Obviously, you got Stan Lee and one of my personal heroes, Jim Shooter, on the cover of that one. And this is 81, so I'm assuming this would be the fall issue of 81, and then it would pick back up in winter of March. So winter of 82. Which is, I would say, technically is the beginning of it, if you want to do full year runs. And so I got Kirby there and some Kirby characters. They're still kind of, we're still talking, this is the time when, Superman, Christopher Reeve's Superman was still a thing, so he's still prevalent. 82 is when Superman 2 came, when Superman 2 came out. Take Me to a Planet Houston. Anyways, that would be that one. What do we have here? We've got, looks like Secret of Nim. I can see the original Swamp Thing right down there. It's funny about Secret of Nim. I'll get into the Secret of Nim later, because I've got some weird stuff to say about Secret of Nim. Just I don't know. It was a weird time. Anyways, you got, so it looks like Conan. No, it's Conan the Barbarian. Yeah, it's still 82. It's the year Conan. So this is when Conan came out. This is odd. I keep thinking Conan was from the late 70s, but I keep forgetting it's 82. We've got some I see some Blade Runner down there. Talking about Bernie Hogarth, meet Bernie Hogarth. At that time, I didn't know who Bernie Hogarth was, but I did learn about him later. Here's got some ElfQuest. this is okay. So this is the beginning. This is March of, or not March, it's January. So it's the winter of '83, and we go to the spring issue. March. Okay, that makes sense. It's funny to think that March is spring. Or at least they have the end of March is spring. You got some Cerebus down there. Again, I'm going to say also at this time, '83, I didn't know who Cerebus was. I knew who ElfQuest was, or know what ElfQuest was because I saw it at the Rochester Book Center, but I didn't know what Cerebus was yet, or if I'd seen it, I didn't know what I was looking at. There's some Fire and Ice, Warlord. Remember, by this time, '83, they had those Remco Warlord action figures, so it all is around that time. Again, talking about Terry and the Pirates. So let's... Okay, this will be the last issue of Volume 1 of '83 that I have. Like I said, I think I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm missing issue 6. Okay, 7, 8, 9. Mission 6 and 10 I'm missing of that one. And I know there's 11 issues of the first volume, Volume 1. And there's Superman 3, of course. So, and then talking about the X-Men, huge at the time. Now, we'll get into when Volume 2, when they started republishing again in '87. And this is when I picked up. I don't think I picked up with this specific issue, but I know the next issue I had, actually the next 2 issues I had. And so let's just click into, let's just go into the first issue of Volume 2. So again, Superman. I think this is either this is Superman 4-ish, which is a terrible movie, by the way. But anyway, Superman 4. Now we're talking about Watchmen. So this is my prime time. Like I said, I started collecting comics in '84, but when I really was seriously into comics, this is like right in the heart of my my classic days of collecting comics. Oh, don't tell me. Really? This is supposed to... Okay. So let's see. This is going to look like crap. I didn't know this issue was that small. I looked at it before. Are they all like this? I did download these, but I didn't really look. Let's see if we can fix... Oh, no. What? Okay. Okay. Sorry for the technical wave. There's Moebius. They can see all the graphic novels there, which I had most of those. All right, this is okay. Maybe we'll look. Well, I don't want to go to. Yeah, actually, let's do that. I can go to. Let's just open it in stupid Photoshop. At least with Photoshop, I know I can go to the view here, and after it stops being, as I said, it goes on, it locks up, it's unresponsive, blah blah blah, and then it finally starts working, and then I don't even have any. Where are my viewing tools at? Is it in the... Okay. Let's go to view. Sorry about this. I wasn't expecting... Well, it's Adobe, so you never know what to expect. All tools. Okay, where are the... Where's my viewing? It used to be right over here. View more? I'm not paying for it, but it still doesn't matter. It still used to have my viewing tools. Alright, this is going to be problematic. You know what I can do? This will work. I can flip through it in here. I know it's not as... It's not going to open again. It's not exactly what I want to do, but I can flip through it through here. Well, sort of, I guess. So, anyways, and again, all the different movie. I had that Aliens movie adaptation. I had the Rocky IV movie magazine. I was really big into the movie magazines. I really like them. And like I said, this is of this time. So we're talking the Watchmen. I believe is still coming out. We've got the Frank Miller's Dark Knights come out. This is technically, even they say 86s, but let's just say in context of this magazine, this is the beginning of the modern era of comics. And, oops, darn it. Oh, this is very cumbersome. I'm not a big fan of PDFs to begin with. I'd rather use CBRs, but again, in order to do that, I would have to do a lot of extra work here. Yeah, this is, Quest for Peace with Superman. So basically the movie would talk about, when it talks about movies, obviously you can see Batman there. It's all comic book adjacent, superhero adjacent. And so basically the heart of the bulk of the magazine was about Strikeforce Martyria, was about comic books. Mayhem in the Mutant Land. I wonder if this is 87. This came out in 89, I believe, was Excalibur. It's kind of weird that it's there. But yeah, this is, I'm on 87? Wow. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's the Down Under. That's when they follow the mutants happen. Is that what they're talking about? I haven't read this. Like I said, I never owned this specific issue, or Lone Wolf and Cub. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, before the internet, or just going to the comic book shop, really, I had that poster. I still need to get that poster back. This is all you had. Unless you just, hung out at the comic book shop all the time, and we're constantly, constantly looking over stuff. If you wanted to read about stuff, or you wanted to know about anything, unless you're at a comic book convention where you could ask people and hope that they know the right answer, this is it. This was your comic book knowledge, was this magazine. Or reading, obviously reading the letters pages in comics. There's the Kraven's Last Hunt. Yeah, all of this. And I started going to comic book conventions this year as well, for the first time. So like I said, my comic book, education over my formative years with comic books all started heavy in 87. And it was all because meeting a like-minded friend, learning about magazines like this because it's just come out, learning about the conventions, going to the conventions. I mean, I started in 84, but I was pretty much just getting comics and drawing comics up until, for a couple of years until, everything started to get a little more serious. Darn it, I did it again. I know this is going to get old quick. I just wanted to thumb through this issue too, because like I said, I didn't have this one, so I'm just kind of curious. Yeah, there's some Lone Wolf and Cub, Watchmen. Again, that poster, I believe it was still Kraven's Last Hunt poster. I had that poster. You see, I put the what do you call it back up on the wall. Oh, by the way, did I show this to you before? I know you've seen because it was in the last video, I had the Secret Wars poster, but here's my the Secret Wars 8 poster that I got. I'm kind of keeping all the Secret Wars posters together in here as they come out. Only the 2 have come out so far, but I had that poster. Again, trying to find some of the older posters. They have a Web of Spider-Man poster coming out too. I've got that one in order. I'm really looking forward to getting that one. I never had that as a kid, but I always loved that image from Web of #1. They also used it on the Concrete Jungle for Marvel Superheroes by TSR. But yeah, this you want to talk about the membranes or the feels. Kraven's Last Hunt, the whole wedding with Mary Jane at the time. I mean, this stuff was just so ensconced in my, the end of 8th grade going into high school as a freshman. like I said, and that whole summer of this stuff too was just, it was one of the best times of my life. I'm not gonna say it's the best time, but it's definitely one of them. Probably even though I had a terrible illness that summer, it was probably my second favorite summer that I can remember of my whole life. The first, of course, being in the summer out of, in 1983 when Jedi came out. This was a great summer, though. All this, like I said, new place to live in, which is bigger than our old place. Essentially went from this tiny little postage stamp of an apartment, which is like the front of a house. It was an old house, which was terrible. My mom and I being right on top of each other in this, and then when my sister was there, it was just too many people in this tiny little crappy little old house apartment, which is long gone. There's a story behind that. Anyways, and then we moved into this giant, massive trailer in a trailer park. But to me, it was a palace. It's like I had my own room with a door, and my own. It was even though it was probably technically not much bigger. Well, it was a little bit bigger than the place we were in. It seemed like we had so much extra room, and so I got this new place to live in. Started a new school, got a new friend. Like-minded friend into the same stuff. It was a great time. Meeting new people in the trailer park, that was interesting. But yeah, this time, and we got some of the McFarlane, I believe that was a McFarlane issue Batman or Detective Comics. I think. Maybe not. I thought it was. Or maybe not. Maybe it's Brian Boland? I can't remember who that was. I don't know if it's talking about Flintstones. Yeah, Ninja Turtles. Like I said, this is 87. I mean, the Ninja Turtles cartoon was just about to start. I think it was fall of 87, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was fall of 87. And I was a huge Ninja Turtles fan by then. The toy line hadn't come out. The cartoon, like I said, the cartoon was just about to come out. So anything Ninja Turtles, oh my gosh. You look at this page of Ninja Turtles and talking about Eastman and Laird. I mean, that stuff was just, I just went right to it. That's a great picture of Black Canary there. That's Sable. Are they talking about Green Arrow the Longbow Hunter? I know Green Arrow the Longbow Hunter was a big comic at that time. I think that's Green Arrow the Longbow Hunter. Like I said, I didn't have this issue and I had read this one, so I couldn't tell you. Johnny Quest. Right now we're still talking about some Moebius. Do you also remember when Moebius did I think it's in one of these magazines, when Moebius was doing those Marvel posters, like that Iron Man one? I think it's still up at the Comics Corner in Rochester Hills. I think it's still up on the wall there. Every time I see that poster, I'm just like, whoa, it's another one that just takes me back. The poster I had. Or Cerebus. I always liked that cover of Cerebus there. DuckTales. I believe DuckTales? Yeah, DuckTales was out at the time. The cartoon. Again, here we go. Here's some Dark Knight. Oh, check. Look at this. Oh. They got Dark Knight, Watchmen, The Shadow, and Ronin all on this page. You're really pushing the Miller here. Although it's not. It's Howard Chaykin, not Miller. And of course, this is Alan Moore and Gibbons, not Miller. But you know what I'm talking about. That whole modern, edgy anti-hero. They're really pushing that there. That's the end of the cover of that. What are we on time? Okay. I'm trying not to make this video too long as well. Again, this issue I had. I think this was... No, sorry. It's going to open it. No, wait a minute. McFarlane's starting up on Spider-Man as well. So, like I said, this is just after Craven's Last Hunt. Now we're going to get into the McFarlane stuff. Yeah, there's McFarlane. Star Trek The Next Generation had just begun, and they had a magazine, which I had. I need to find some of those Star Trek The Next Generation magazines. I also... I'm not going to get into this whole story with Star Trek, but I got this game and some of these miniatures, and then my friend who was a diehard Starfleet Battles. Oh, game's terrible. You got to play Starfleet Battles. I don't know if he might watch this video. He might take a chuckle at that if he even remembers. But yeah, I remember I had this issue. I'm not a huge Looney Tunes fan. I mean, I don't dislike Looney Tunes, and obviously I watched it. But some people are really into the Looney Tunes. I don't like cute things. I stopped liking cute things when I was like 9, 10. I liked not cute things at that time. So I really wasn't into the Looney Tunes. What do we have here? This looks like some Sienkiewicz artwork. I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm just, like I said, I just wanted to poke into this first one. Look at the second one here. Again, I wish I had a better way to show this to you easier. Let's open this. This one might not be all jacked up like the other one. Let's see. Hopefully it's not. And then, normally, it's funny because with my tablet, when I put PDFs and use Comic Viewer, it sizes everything to be uniform. I don't know why. Maybe it's because these are double pages. I don't know why they scanned them in double pages. But that's probably why they did it. Because if you do blow these up, I mean, they do adjust for size and they get clearer. And then it just gets stupid. Well, relatively clearer. There's like no in-between. Okay. Oh, okay, well, let's see what we'll do with this. Oh, this is janky. No, that ain't gonna work. Let's knock that out. Okay. Flaming Carrot. I wasn't as much. My buddy was my friend I met. He was really in, and my other buddy. They were into Flaming Carrot a lot. I really sort of liked it, kind of. Because I liked Tick, and I liked Flaming Carrot and the Ninja Turtles, obviously, and adolescent radioactive black belt hamsters, and Clint. The Dark Hamster Returns. I liked all that kind of spoofy indie kind of stuff. Yeah, here we're talking about X-Men 300. Yeah, it's pieces from X-Men 300. So, like I said, they're talking about this stuff. It's contemporary. I mean, it's modern. I didn't really like Looney Tunes that much, but I really did like Count Duckula for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because, I don't know why. It just came out and I kind of liked it. But like I said, all this stuff was new at the time. I guess, I know I'm just going to keep saying that. Oh, nice Betty Page there. Oh, Rocketeer. But is that Betty Page or is that his girlfriend? I can't remember. I'm not a huge Rocketeer person either. Harry and the Hendersons. Oh yeah. The Manhunt. This is also when I started to kind of get into DC more too. I mean, I was always a Marvel guy first, but I started to get really heavily into DC. And I guess you could in the late '80s, and you really couldn't help becoming a DC person with so many DC titles come out in big stuff too. Marvel, sure, but DC really seemed to be in the spotlight in the late '80s when they kind of restructured. It's post-crisis. Doing a lot of that stuff. But, all right. Hey, well, I'm gonna. There's one other issue I'd like to flip through. But let's just take a look at some of these covers too. So we've got. Again, X Factor. I was huge into X Factor. I really liked X Factor. I wasn't a huge Walt Simonson fan, but I really liked the X Factor. Who Framed Roger Rabbit was out right around this time. You've got this, what do you call it? It was a TV show. I think it was a TV show. Animated Superman and live action Superboy. It was Superboy, yeah. Superboy TV show was out. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Here's some more McFarlane Batman. And then, of course, '89, it's leading up into, and like I said, when the Keaton Batman came out in '89, it was huge. I mean, I'm not going to say it's the last time, but that's one of the last times I really got excited about something. Not that it was the best thing since sliced bread, although I thought they did a very good job with the first one. But just the hype and the lead up to it. And, you know, it's funny that Jack Nicholson being the Joker, I'd have to dig it up, but this magazine also used to have this feature, I haven't come across it yet, where they were talking about who would play, you know, whatever comic book character. And always said, you know, between the, I can't remember what the guy's name is from Goodfellas, one bad guy. He's dead. He just passed away not long. I can't remember the guy's name. But him and Nick Nicholson, and then of course then they come out with Nicholson as the Joker. It was just like, oh my gosh. And then you thought like you'd go back and read the comic scenes and like, who else did they predict? You know, and I think they did mention Patrick, because, you know, Star Trek Next Generation was big at the time. They did mention Patrick Stewart as Xavier, and but yeah, this time, I mean, anything with pictures, anything new that you could see. I mean, I remember going to a comic book convention. It might have been the Middle Belt show out in Livonia, but it was one of the Extravagons. But I remember going there, and somebody had a bootleg videotape, and they said this is the making of the Batman movie, and the Batman movie hadn't come out yet. And this was like 5th generation video. You could barely even tell it was on the video, but it just, that's how hungry we were for anything. And we got I should do a whole video on just Keaton Batman. I mean, got that video, and they started talking about the making of, and, you know, Anton Fig's designs, and talking about Tim Burton, and all of this stuff, and it, you know, like a scene from Witches of Eastwick with Jack Nicholson kind of showed his kind of rant and stuff to kind of make him what he was going to do in the Batman movie. And even though the Keaton thing was like, you know, what the heck's going on with that? It was just a build-up to it. And that was my second. I said, I'm not a huge Batman fan today, but when I was a very little kid, I loved Batman because of the Adam West show, Super Friends, you name it. I've made a video on that. But this was definitely my volume 2, my second coming of Batman for me. And that it kind of fizzled out. After this, all the hype and stuff was gone with the Batman movies, and obviously once Keaton left and then Tim Burton left, by Batman 2, I was just like, and I just really haven't become a real staunch Batman fan since then, yeah, I said anything, all of these magazines, anything you could get a hold of to get Batman stuff, you would go after. Of course, Punisher was still big. I mean, this is the late 80s. This is when the anti-hero really became a thing, which kind of ushered in the modern era. I've said in the past that I think that's when comic books died. I still kind of hold on to that idea, but at the same time, maybe I was being a little, you know, hyperbolic. But yeah, still, I mean, at that time, I mean, I loved the anti-heroes. Like, it was badass. It was cool. You know, I'm a teenager. You know, I thought, like, things that were cool, you know, things that were, you know, that were intimidating or aggressive, and, you know, I was just a young person filled with piss and vinegar and angst and spite, you know, and so any type of anti-hero come along would kick his boot, you know, into the establishment. I was all, like, thinking that was the coolest thing in the world. I'm old now. I'm not as angry anymore, so I'm not as, the stuff doesn't really have the same effect on me as it did then during my, you know, angsty youth. But still, I mean, it is what it is. You know, looking back on it now, you know, I have got nostalgia for that time period, sure. I've got nostalgia for certain things. You know, Punisher, you know, I always thought the Punisher was cool then. I kind of, you know, lost interest in him. Mr. Monster, there was a weird one. Oh, I don't know if they have a picture of it, but that Clive Barker, let me just flip through this real quick. Clive Barker did a prestige format, a square-bound book, right about this time, and I had the poster for it up on my wall. I always loved that poster. You can tell I'm a big poster person. That was just a big thing, and it was kind of like a competition too. with my friends and I, or at least specifically my one friend, where it's just like who could get the coolest poster, you know. And when we both had the same poster, it's kind of like but like when I had a poster he didn't have, oh, you know, I could flex on him. It's like, oh, it made me feel superior, you know. That's some Batgirl, some Yvonne Craig, Star Trek and Batgirl. I just want to see. Oh, this is also the time. I didn't like Arkham. I don't like Sienkiewicz's artwork. I have nothing against it. I'm not trying to say it's bad. Me personally, I just don't have a taste for Sienkiewicz or Sienkiewicz or however I want to say his name. And I really didn't have a huge taste for Arkham Asylum. I just, you know, did. Oh God, I forgot the Captain America movie they tried to make then too. I didn't see it. I thought it's the whole magazine. I didn't see that. All right, we'll move on. But yeah, I didn't really like Arkham Asylum. I just didn't like that painted look, and I didn't like where it's all weird. I didn't like. Here's the other thing. I mean, I did like weird things for shock value. Like, it's like, I want to show something weird and edgy and, you know, risque to, like, other people at school, because it was like, it was almost like a shield or almost like a weapon you could use. I weaponize it as, you know, like, as in, let's shock people, you know, just kind of as like a, I don't know, a weird form of passive-aggressive form of trying to, you know, declare your dominance. Like, I'm crazier than you, and I want to passively, aggressively, subtly tell you by showing you crazy artwork that I have, and so fear me, type of thing. You know what I mean? I guess we became anti-heroes ourselves at the time, but I did weird stuff like that when I was in school, where it's like I'd use, you know, shock value and shocks. I mean, kids do it all the time. That's what the whole goth movement kind of became, and a lot of kids did that, you know. But that was one of those weird. I just did it with a weird, you know, format, as opposed, I wasn't overly wearing my emotions on my sleeve, but at the same time, you know, trying to. I also thought by me being in the comic books, because comic books really weren't cool at the time, but they were kind of cool in a weird tangentially kind of way. So I thought, like, oh, since I'm I'm the comic book guy, I'm kind of cool. I'm cooler than you, even though comics weren't cool. Again, that was another weird thing that I used to do. I had to explore that whole weird mindset that I had. But yeah, now we're going into the Ninja Turtles movie. Again, movies and TV shows, for the most part, I mean, even the Ariel, you know, the Disney stuff to some extent, was all comic book adjacent. But then we got the Dick Tracy movie. And again, now one thing I did watch Tiny Toons. Even though I didn't like cute things, I just thought it was funny. I just like the sarcastic humor of Tiny Toons. And then, of course, Animaniacs. Simpsons were running, you know, starting at the time. The old that Flash TV show, Jim Lee X-Men. Pull these up. Just not keeping up with me. The Return of Swamp. Like I said, I'm missing the Return of Swamp Thing issue, which I believe is. Let's see, I've got 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. It's one of these in here. Maybe it's when the actual movie came out. I think that's might be talking about when it came out. Seems like we got a pretty long run of these. I know I'm missing it somewhere. The issue with that. And of course, yeah, Jim Lee X-Men. You've got... now this is when I was a senior in high school. You've got the Flash TV show, which I watched it, but I really wasn't... It wasn't that great. I just thought, why is he so bulky? Muscular. You know, we got the Ninja Turtles. I think it's the second Ninja Turtles movie. You got the Rocketeer movie. The Addams Family movie. You know, and then Rod Liefeld. Again, like I said, so I stopped. I just put, even though I got these comic spectaculars, I think issue 30. I'm not saying that I had issue 30 because I don't believe I had, but oh, of course it's not open. Just go to it. I just want to pull the cover up. God damn it, this thing. I don't know why it doesn't catch up with me. Anyways, it's also probably a good time to start wrapping this up. But like I said, 80 by the end of '82, I was kind of out of comic books, into out of the Western comic books. So again, this 1980, all these issues of Volume 2 of this comic scene magazine was pretty much the bulk of my comic book collecting, reading, really getting into it, and into everything, whether it's the posters, like I said, conventions, a lot of great movies, not great, but I guess a lot of hype. '89 was a huge. I think it was like the last. I read somewhere it was like the last big summer of blockbuster. Even though they had summer blockbusters after that, but they were talking about like they had Indiana Jones: Last Crusade. They had, which they didn't mention in this, by the way. The Keaton Batman. So the Keaton Batman was enormous. I mean, that was just such a massive thing. And the Ninja Turtles movie, which wasn't '89, but yeah, I mean, this whole time period. Again, for those not in the know or people who have forgotten, I know I keep saying like this is the golden age. I feel like it kind of was the golden age of. This is before the MCU, way before the MCU. I mean, this is '82. I mean, the MCU didn't start until what, 2007, where it really started getting going, or with the Iron Man movie. So you're talking, 15 years. Almost 20, it was '87, so it's 20 years prior to the MCU. Again, no internet. You had comic books, you had magazines, you had graphic novels, you had books, you had the movies, you had TV shows. I mean, that was, they really nothing really even took, like video games, never really caught on with comic stuff till later. I mean, they had a few games. I think they had a Batman game. They might have had a Spider-Man game. But for Super Nintendo, it's more the 90s. But late 80s, no. I mean, late 80s, until Super Nintendo and Genesis came out, I don't think, there were, that I can remember, any comic book. So here's the other thing I find weird. Maybe people don't find this weird, but I find it weird. I'll close on this. You've got such a huge time, at least I think it was a huge time, right around the Keaton, like I said, the Keaton Batman, but up into it. And this is also when action figures were huge. And you did have the superpowers figures, you did have which again, that was kind of all we had at this time. And then when they came out the Batman figures by Toy Biz, they kind of started re-releasing some of the superpowers figures as in under that banner. They got the license from Kenner and got some of the molds, obviously. So you really only had, and again, it was very DC heavy, because other than that, you just had the Secret Wars figures, and the Secret Wars figures, like I said, they didn't have that many of them, and I liked them, but they weren't not that popular, even though Secret Wars is what started me in comic books in the first place. But you really didn't have action figures. The whole and this is actually why it led up to the speculator boom in the 90s blowing up. Is, like I said, comics were still underground. Even though they had mainstream publications at the grocery store, and then of course started doing mainstream movies. I mean, this is kind of when I would say more the DCU than the MCU, because the MCU, like that Captain America movie was bad. But it's more the DCU kind of started up with the Keaton Batman, and then and then of course then you had like the Ninja Turtles and stuff. So it started to go mainstream, and then in the '90s it did, and then action figures and video games and more stuff, more junk, and it kind of saturated the market. And of course, it led to the big speculator boom. But at this time, I would say from '87 to '89. You had a lot of cool pop culture stuff, but not a lot of merchandising. Like I said, for me it was posters. I mean, outside of the comic books and this type of stuff, for me it was posters I thought were a big merchandising thing. If you could catch a T-shirt once in a while, that was cool. I'd had some pretty cool T-shirts, and I'd wear them to high school and totally get made fun of for wearing them. People used to think, they used to think, they still at the time, even in high school students, kids that were not into this thought this stuff was for children, and that you're still playing with toys and you're still, you're into childish things. And so it really wasn't, it was pretty taboo, or I don't know if taboo is the word. I guess it truly was geeky, it truly was nerdy, or it truly was, fringe society stuff. They didn't, it wasn't as popular, and not everybody was into it. So, like I said, a weird time, but a weird time when you think about it, when you look back on it, but what a great time it was, and, I was there for the whole thing. I remember it all. And it's funny, just magazines like this stuff, of course, make me even remember more pieces of it, because, you can't obviously remember everything, even though I do have a pretty laser-focused memory. But every time I see pieces of nostalgia like this, especially, magazines that I can look through and read the articles, I downloaded them all to my tablet so I could sit there and thumb through them and read them. And they work on there as opposed to, looks like crap on here. But, I can thumb through them, and I can look through them, and I can really kind of go back to that time period, which I was, very happy with, even though it was a very traumatic time period, being it was my school days. But again, everybody loves, when they're older, they pine for their school days. It's Japan's whole industry is built on that. So, all right, let me let you go here. I'm going to, who knows when I'm going to do a next one. I'm going to shoot for at least putting out at minimum a video a month. I know I was doing one every day, and then I went to every other day, then I went to once a week. Now I'm down to once a month. My friend was right. You're going to run out of things to talk about, even though it seems like I can never run out of things to talk about. So check this out. Go to archives.org, and you can find these on there, and you can download them and whatnot, throw them on your tablet and thumb through them. I think they're a lot of fun. Like I said, if you were around at that time, you'll find them fun and nostalgic. If you were not around that time, you want a little bit of history, there's a lot of history there. A lot of history. And so check that out. Which reminds me, I never bought that book about the 80s too. So anyways, I'll let you guys go, and I'll see you on the next one. Alright, take care. Bye-bye.